Good morning, everybody. This is a live emergency update and meteorological breakdown on the crippling snow and ice storm that is about to impact a large portions of the central and southern U.S. This is the Weather Prediction Center probabilities of that ice accretion exceeding warning criteria. And those areas in purple are greater than 80%. It looks like northeast Texas through the Arklatex up into northwestern Mississippi is going to be the one maxima of ice, and then another one to the east of the Appalachians, northeastern Georgia, upstate South Carolina, and the Carolina Piedmont up into southeastern Virginia. Looks like it's also going to be getting hammered. Here is the snow probabilities. That is going to be from northern Oklahoma up through the Ohio River Valley with those maximum probabilities, and then expanding across portions of the northeast, northern Virginia, eastern Pennsylvania, the entire state of New Jersey. And New York City is going to likely get blasted by possibly up to 1.5 feet of snow, as well as we could get more of a coastal type situation. And you may remember many years ago, 2007, we had a crazy ice storm in Oklahoma. And here is that ice storm. This is December 10, 2007. I was 27 years old, and we had like 2 to 3 inches of freezing rain. These are going to be the impacts that you are going to see over portions of that snowfall and ice maximum, especially the ice maximum. And in the middle of the night, you could hear shotgun blasts going off, and that was as the transformers were exploding underneath the weight of the ice.
The tree.
And definitely the power explosions illuminated the entire sky as that 2 to 3 inches of ice accumulated on all of the tree branches, the power lines as well. There you can see some of my roommates as we were at the University of Oklahoma at the time looking at it. And then we emerged outside, and that's Simon Brewer's Astro van right there that had a tree that fell on it, and just about every single tree came down across Norman and the Oklahoma City metro. We had power outages that lasted 2 weeks out there. No power for 2 weeks happening out there. You can see all those tree branches down, everything tilted all the way down to the ground. There's our house, and we could actually hear the tree branches rip the power lines out of the house. And then we were without power for a couple weeks. We were in survival mode there, huddled around the fireplace. We got Vienna sausages there. You can see my red Ford pickup truck. And the trees were blocking a lot of the roads, the tree branches that came down. So interestingly, with this event that was caused by thunderstorms, thunder and lightning, 2 to 3 inches of freezing rain, accretion on all the branches and everything. But for some reason, the roads were mainly wet just because they were a little bit warmer from warm weather that preceded this event. And all the freezing rain accrued on the elevated surfaces, bridges and overpasses, tree branches and everything. Woke up the next morning to a war zone out there, and then we had no power for 2 weeks. But that was a big time ice storm, folks, that hammered that area. There you can see some of the accretion. That's what you're going to get with pure freezing rain. That's when you have that warm nose just above the ground, and then it falls into that sub-freezing air. You can see my roommate's greenhouse out there as well. And this is going to be a big time event, folks, just like that one. And those are going to be the similar impacts. This is the snow swath of the European model. Those areas in dark purple are the double-digit snowfall. Then you're starting to approach 2 feet, where you see that orange peach coloration with the Euro snow. And then you can see the ice, and you can see those 2 maxima. This is going to be a 2-waved event out here, folks. So we are going to break down the forecast models. Time to do our meteorological breakdown here. And I'm also going to be chasing this event as well. And here is the latest European model solution. And this one has nailed it. It shows a more amplified upper level storm system with the positive feedbacks that are baked into these storm systems. Usually you will get a more amplified system and a stronger surface low as well. But it shows the night, Friday night, the 23rd, that mixed precipitation breaking out here across Oklahoma. I'm going to show you the upper levels as well. We dig a vortex out of the Baja Mountain region. But this lead wave is from a coupled jet structure with the right entrance region and left exit region of a jet. And this precipitation breaks out across Oklahoma the night of the 23rd. Probably icy. It's probably going to begin as sleet and freezing rain. And as that precipitation gets a little heavier through dynamical cooling, it could be cooled down into snowfall there. This is the night of the 23rd. That's tomorrow night, Friday night here in Oklahoma. The lead wave is coming in, and then we have the kicker system, the main event that's going to be coming in on Saturday night. But this lead wave is a little bit more of a mushy, warm advection driven type of a wave here. And a lot of times these snowstorms in the southern plains are a multi-wave event, a 1-2 punch that will happen. The lead wave has the ice snow line right through the Oklahoma City metro with freezing rain off to the south, and then it expands across Arkansas, reaching the lower Mississippi River Valley by midday. And the precipitation is going to continue to get heavier. You can see it's convective as well. Showers and thunderstorms from southeastern Texas through Louisiana, moving over that cold air at the surface. You've got a 1043 high over the Great Lakes region, definitely amplifying that cold air. And I was looking at a forecast sounding in Memphis at about the time of the peak freezing rain, and it's going to be in the low 20s at the surface. So you've got a warm nose just above the ground, and then that falls into the sub-freezing air, super cooled water, and that will accrue on the branches, power lines, extreme power outages. This is the lead wave. Then the second wave comes in. That one could be heavier for the Oklahoma City metro when that comes in, but near peak freezing rain near Memphis and in northwestern Mississippi and the entire state of Arkansas with the snow likely across the Ozarks. That could be a maxima in the snow. And then you can see the second wave Saturday night ejecting here across Oklahoma. And this is going to be associated with some greater upper level energy. So we'll likely see some dynamical cooling out here, maybe even some thunder snow here, central Oklahoma back into northwest Texas. Freezing rain, hammering Dallas, Lone Star ice back into the Texas Hill Country with this second wave as well. So this is also going to be crippling for the DFW Metroplex. We know how that Lone Star ice event went last time, and with this more powerful amplified upper system, you can see the warm nose reaches all the way up into central Tennessee, changing things over to rain there, and even invades eastern Kentucky, but not until after a period of crippling freezing rain to begin the event with that lead wave. And I think here to the east of the Appalachians, you're going to have big problems. You can see this high just ahead of it, and that cold air likes to dam up against the Appalachians to the east of it with a cold air wedge, and you're going to have very prolonged freezing rain northeastern Georgia, upstate South Carolina, and the Carolina Piedmont up into southern Virginia right here at my mom's house. And there you can see that prolonged freezing rain happening. That's why you get the double maxima. You have one here to the east of the Appalachians where that cold air banks up against the mountains. And you also have a big time snow event across eastern Pennsylvania, basically the entire state of New Jersey, even though you change over to rain in the far southern portion, New York City, up into portions of the Northeast. You have that high, low pressures coming in from the southwest, a coastal low forms there just offshore. Look at that coastal low just off Delmarva, and then the kicker system arrives. But with the more amplified upper pattern depicted by the Euro, and the GFS is gravitating toward it, it brings this warm nose all the way up, and that might change things over to rain across much of Tennessee, even southeastern Kentucky. But it looks like the snowmax is going to be here along the Ohio River Valley, back to the Ozarks and into central Oklahoma, and also portions of the Northeast here, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, up across New York City. Now is the time to prepare. You want to get those Vienna sausages now, Chef Boyardee, and brace yourself for potentially multiple days of power outages, potentially even weeks of power outages over some of these areas. So this is going to be an absolute mess up here of an ice storm. And I want to show you the forecast sounding here in Memphis at peak freezing rain time. This is going to be with the first wave Saturday night here in Memphis. And look at that warm nose, surface temperature 23 degrees. The warm nose just above the ground is what drives these ice storms. And let me straighten out the Epic pen there. There is the warm nose in the forecast sounding. That's where the temperature goes above freezing right there. This is your freezing line on your forecast sounding. So this is the warm nose where it goes above freezing, and then these are the sub-freezing surface temperatures. And a lot of these ice storms are warm advection driven precipitation, so a lot of the precipitation will form in the vicinity of the warm nose, and you have liquid water that falls into that sub-freezing layer, super cooled water, and these surface temperatures are way below freezing, 23 over 20 almost looks like a bit of a sleet sounding. You have your northeasterly surface winds below the warm nose, and then you've got a low-level jet ripping in the vicinity of the warm nose, providing a lot of the lift for these ice storm events. And when that liquid water falls into this sub-freezing air, it's super cooled water, freezes on impact through a process called accretion. And sometimes when you have a lot of upper support, you can also get convective precipitation. You can get some steep lapse rates out here, and you can get elevated storms that will develop near the warm nose. You can see how it's saturated up there in the vicinity of the warm nose, of course. So you can get thunder and lightning with the freezing rain, storms happening. But these surface temperatures, 23 over 20, those are so cold that any supercooled water droplet will freeze on impact. That includes the road surfaces, so very different than that 2007 event that happened in Oklahoma on December 10. On that one, the temperatures were a little bit warmer, and we also had a lot of warm temperatures that happened in the days before, and that made the road temperatures a little bit warmer. So the roads were wet, but the problems were from the infrastructure, from the power lines, from the trees coming down. People were burning piles of debris in front of their homes for weeks out there in Oklahoma. It took forever to clean up, and that's because of freezing rain, convective freezing rain, thunderstorms coming in. This sounding in Memphis on Saturday night has those surface temperatures at like 23 over 20. Very cold surface temperatures, prominent warm nose as well, and that's going to cause some problems out there. And again, we were picking that sounding in the Memphis area on Saturday night. Here's your event when it breaks out, initially with the first wave and then a second wave coming in. And North Texas is going to have 2 rounds of ice. That includes the DFW Metroplex down toward Waco. Even Austin is going to get out on the freezing rain, especially with the second wave. And you can see the maximum here, longer duration, western Tennessee and a northwestern Mississippi, eastern Arkansas. Here is the event breaking out to the east of the Appalachians. And as we could show you, I use this accretion rate for ice. This is from the European model here. This isn't freezing rain accumulation, but it's actually a better estimate of the depth of the ice. And those blue areas are greater than an inch of ice, even approaching 2 inches here across southeastern Oklahoma, northeastern Texas, Arkansas, central and southern Arkansas, Little Rock, up through the Memphis area. That blue right there, 1.2, 1.3 inches, pushing an inch and a half. Then you can see your warm nose in the middle might hold down the ice accretion rates across most of Alabama, with the exception of the northwestern corner. And it even starts to invade here to the west of the Appalachians. That's where the warm nose is likely going to be confined. And then you can see another maximum to the east of the Appalachians, northeast Georgia, upstate South Carolina, across the Carolina Piedmont. And as we step forward, watch that expand. It looks like western North Carolina into the Carolina Piedmont and into Virginia is probably going to have the longest duration of those sub-freezing surface temperatures. And you can see a little bit less down into upstate South Carolina, but that's going to possibly be due to a changeover of rain before those crippling impacts. I need to note, though, that GFS is still a little bit further south of this, and it has this northeastern Georgia, upstate South Carolina area just getting hammered by freezing rain. And a lot of times that sub-freezing air is pretty stubborn to move out when it's trapped here, dammed up against the Appalachians. And that's why I'm very concerned about this region, very concerned about this entire region, really, that could get ice. And with the more amplified European solution, it does bring that warm nose up into central and eastern Tennessee with time. But those are your ice accretion, basically the depth of the ice estimated. And we'll look at the European snowfall here, the Kuchera snow to liquid ratio, because it factors in the thermodynamics a bit. You can see the ongoing lake effect event still happening up there downwind of the Great Lakes. And here's your snow, break it out with the first wave in Oklahoma. It looks like the European model has slightly greater totals to the northwest of the Oklahoma City metro, which is pretty common for that part of the region. But here you can see northwestern Arkansas with the help of orography from the Ozark Plateau. You're likely going to have another max here. And then the next wave moves in on Saturday night, and the European model just blasts the Oklahoma City metro, and it has greater than a foot falling in the OKC metro, another stripe there in northwest Oklahoma, and also up into the Ozarks. And it has the Ohio River Valley getting blasted with 1.5 feet of snow as well, up into Cincinnati, Louisville, Evansville, Indiana, and also big snow up in Pennsylvania, New Jersey. It looks like that's where the snowfall max is going to be across the Northeast, especially on top of that lake effect event up there. But it looks like a nice snowfall max across the Ohio River Valley and in Oklahoma. But we got to look at our GFS model as well. There is model discrepancies between those two, but the GFS did migrate a bit toward the European model solution. This is the 6Z GFS model. It also has Oklahoma City right on the southern edge of those double-digit snowfall totals, and it definitely has the northwest Arkansas getting blasted by nearly 2 feet of snow, and it has eastern Kentucky, that higher terrain, getting hammered up into West Virginia with the snowfall max. Ice, though, to the south of that. But a lot of times the GFS will inflate these snowfall totals a little bit, especially with these high moisture type storm systems like this one. So not sure if we'll reach 2 feet in northern Arkansas, but it's very possible that we could hit some of those snowfall totals there. Eastern Kentucky, the European model has that stripe right near the Ohio River Valley. But the 6C models definitely have gravitated toward that more realistic European model solution. When you have these positive feedbacks that are baked into a storm system like this, it seems like amplification of the upper level system and a stronger surface low is a more realistic pattern. And this is the upper level pattern. This is like what we like to focus on here at Team Dominator. You got a closed low here near Baja. You've also got a vort to the north of the Great Lakes region. That helps to provide the shot of cold air ahead of that ejection. And the initial wave that arrives the evening of the 23rd is caused by the right entrance region of this jet. You basically have some loose lift that happens out here, and that leads to a more messy development, warm advection-driven development of precipitation here, also coupled with the jet the night of the 23rd. And that's going to lead to the first wave of precipitation that develops across the southeastern Great Plains, moves across the lower Mississippi River Valley, and eventually spreading east from there. And here's the kicker system. You got a lot of flow also coming out of Western Canada, and this trough ejects. That's going to be the second wave. That's likely going to be more potent for Oklahoma. And usually when a vortex like this at 500 millibars passes near the Red River, that brings the heaviest snow up into the Oklahoma City metro. And we have a lot more lift, upper level jet dynamics and upper level spin, and that should lead to more dynamical cooling and more convective type snows, bigger snowflakes, dendrites that will happen here across central Oklahoma with that wave Saturday night into Sunday morning. And then this is going to cruise across the country, and that will end the event as the kicker system catches up to the lead wave. And we'll also have that coastal low that consolidates, and there might be another nor'easter back behind it to close out the month. But that's why the models haven't done a very good job, especially the GFS, because there's not as much upper level data out here. But aircraft reconnaissance are going to start ingesting their data in there. But the GFS definitely gravitated toward that European model solution. And I'm going to be chasing this. I'm heading up to Burnsville, Minnesota today. I've got a speaking event up there tomorrow night. And then I'm driving all night from Burnsville south to position for that ice storm event, Memphis and northwestern Mississippi into Arkansas. We're going to be trying to stream live as well. I have to get another component from the Apple store to be able to stream live through our phone structure. So I'm going to be working on that as well. And I need to get an oil change as well later on this morning. We just got back from Isle of Man. We were blessed with that insane Northern Lights display up there. Just got completely lucky with that G4 event coming in. Big solar wind made it arrive in 24 hours instead of the usual 48 to 72. So saw those overhead Northern Lights. I could even hear them out there. And it was a trip of a lifetime out there, especially with that exclamation point with the Northern Lights at the end. But this is also how some of the big tornado events happen across Dixie Alley, is when you get a trough coming in here to the northwest, and then you dig out a trough over Baja. Just in this case, we have a lot of cold air in place out ahead of this because of that vortex that's located to the north of the Great Lakes region. So that's been leading to a lake effect up here across the upper Great Lakes. Anytime you get these polar vortices up here, basically almost all of these storm systems up here in the mid-latitudes are cold core in nature. But these ones up here that just hover to the north of the Great Lakes can definitely lead to those big lake effect events, but also providing the cold air that's going to be in place for this event. So let's take a look at the GFS model, start at the upper levels. Also has that vortex up here, just slightly different shapes as it started to gravitate toward the European model, and also timing on the ejection of that. It looks like you can see that the GFS is a little further south with the vortex when it finally does pop out. And it also has a bit of a kicker system out here, but that is a little further south. That would bring the heavier snow further south into central Oklahoma as well. So you can see the vortmax down near the Dallas area, but that's going to likely prolong the icy conditions there in Dallas with that further south track as well. So there you can still see some subtle differences in the 6Z runs here in the models. And we're going to go back to our estimated ice depth. And look at that. It also has it a little bit further south, but definitely has this inch ice accretion, total accretion here in the DFW Metroplex, including the I-20 corridor. A little further south in Mississippi, it actually has a lot of snow falling there in the Memphis area with those cold temperatures. But the GFS has this area, northeastern Georgia, up into the upstate South Carolina area, just getting blasted. Right there, upstate South Carolina, the Carolina Piedmont, northeastern Georgia. That's to the east of the Appalachians, where those sub-freezing temperatures can dam up to the east of the Appalachians out there. Got to be kidding me with that. We'll take a look at our precipitation types that are happening. This is the evolution of the GFS. So that precipitation arrives the evening of the 23rd in Oklahoma. There you can see midday the 24th. There is the first wave. This is at about 6 p.m. Central Time out here the 23rd tomorrow evening. And you're going to begin in Oklahoma with some icy conditions, warm advection-driven precipitation with the lead wave. Near the Red River, crippling ice is going to just hammer that area. It looks like a lot of sleet southern Oklahoma near the Red River region, and a ribbon of dangerous freezing rain in the DFW Metroplex. That's at 10 p.m. Friday evening, and you can see the convective nature as that warm advection gets going, coupled with those jet dynamics of the right entrance region of the jet. And look at that ribbon of freezing rain. DFW Metroplex, even down toward the Waco area. This is Saturday morning, 6 a.m. Saturday morning. Sleet dominating central and southern Arkansas. And it looks like you have a lot of sleet near the Memphis area with that freezing rain down near the I-20 corridor, according to the 6C GFS, out into central Mississippi as well. A lot of times that corridor of pure freezing rain is a little bit skinnier. And also notice that the GFS brings that dangerous freezing rain into northern Alabama, keeps Tennessee in frozen precipitation as well. And then to the east of the Appalachians, a prolonged freezing rain event, northeastern Georgia, upstate South Carolina on the GFS, a little bit colder, still a little bit further south. We got to wait for those 12Z guidance to come in, and we'll probably see the GFS even gravitate a little bit toward the European model. Sometimes a weighted average is best when you think that maybe one model has a better understanding of the physical processes of the storm. Then you probably want to give that model a little bit more weight, but usually the reality ends up being kind of an average of these two American and GFS, American and European models. But it looks like GFS a little bit further south also has that coastal storm getting going off the coast of New Jersey, and you can see the blocking high up here with the squeeze play in between. The coastal low developing, the easterlies are going to increase here. New York City could get 1.5 feet of snow as well, but we are still doing the model dance out here, folks, between the European models as well. We also want to look at our NAM model, of course, which is a personal favorite of mine, and let's see what it has. That snow breaking out again the evening of the 23rd. And it looks like a lot of sleet in the Oklahoma City metro, which could hold down some of those totals. That's why the Weather Prediction Center has those greater probabilities. Northern Oklahoma into the Ozark Mountain region with a little bit of orographic support to get that snow. And then there's the second wave that gets going, which will likely be more snow Saturday night there in Oklahoma. And sometimes we just throw out the NAM, don't we? But every now and then, it could be right. Especially for severe weather, when you know, situationally it can be right, but definitely want to lean toward those global models with snow. And the NAM model has Tulsa getting hammered up into southern Missouri, and it does have that stripe even a little bit north of the European model solution, which is interesting. And so it looks like the NAM model is a little bit closer to the European model, upper level track with that heaviest snow. Northeast Oklahoma, the ice just to the south of it has Oklahoma City getting a lot of sleet, and Dallas area getting a lot of a freezing rain max here on the NAM model. it has a freezing rain maximum here across northwestern Mississippi into western Tennessee as well. So that is our NAM model, folks. GFS, European model, which is really kind of our leading model of choice. This is what we would give the most weight for making a snow map and an ice map. And here is your ice accretion map on the European. Definitely having a maximum in ice. Near the Arklatex, central and southern Arkansas, up into northwestern Missouri, western Tennessee. Lots of model agreement for that swath of the big ice here, and also model agreement for the maximum in ice to the east of the Appalachians. That's where you get the low-level sub-freezing air that will wedge up against the mountains up there, and it has those ice accretion rates exceeding an inch. Anywhere in the dark greenish blue, whatever that color is, gray there, that is greater than an inch of ice accretion, and that will have some crippling impacts here across the south. So now's the time to get those Vienna sausages, Chef Boyardee. You can just open those up without heating them up and just eat it down, and has a lot of great taste as well. And I am going to be chasing this. I'm heading up to Burnsville, Minnesota first for a speaking event, and then I'm going to drop south all night, and we'll probably work this zone, even though my own backyard's going to get double-digit snowfall total there in Oklahoma. I definitely wanted to target the ice maxima, where both the waves accrue the greatest ice. But there is your snowfall, likely the greater totals further northeast, longer duration, and the potential for some coastal storms forming. Pennsylvania up into New York State could get hammered. And then you could also see some signals back into Oklahoma. It'll probably be just to the north of the Oklahoma City metro, where you get that snowfall max up toward Tulsa and potentially into central and southern Missouri, northwestern Arkansas. Fayetteville Walmart headquarters is likely going to be blasted as well. And as I mentioned, I've covered a lot of big ice storms, and this one back in 2007, December 10 in Oklahoma. There you can see my roommate's car that got flattened like a pancake by trees that came down under the weight of the ice. This ice accretion accrues on the branches, also the power lines, and in the middle of the night we had these big pops like shotgun blasts as the trees were falling on the power lines.
Out our back porch. The tree. Careful, don't go out there, Coy. It's very unstable.
Oh, it's gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, very unstable. The whole, it hit the
At the time I was 27 years
Here
old.
is the result. The massive ice storm last night. This is early Monday morning.
There was our rental house near OU campus, and tree branches down everywhere. Every single tree came down. There were piles of debris that were burning for weeks, and then eventually the trash pickup started picking up debris as you piled it up near the road. But we had no power for 2 weeks in our house. We were huddled around the fireplace. My roommate Rick actually built a real fire out there to survive. There you can see my red pickup that was my chaser back then. But you couldn't get through the roads because all the branches had fallen down and were blocking many of the roads. But interestingly, a lot of the road surfaces were wet because of some warm temperatures that preceded this event, and we're not going to be that lucky for this one, for this crippling ice storm, because surface temperatures have been cold for a while out there, at least not warm, and that means that the road surfaces, especially with those very cold surface temperatures under the warm nose, I think that's going to allow the accretion to happen on both the road surfaces, the trees, and the power lines out here. But there you can see the freezing rain. I also wouldn't be surprised if that ribbon of pure freezing rain ends up just a little bit south than the European model is showing. Sometimes that sub-freezing air can be a little bit stubborn, even in the face of big warm advection. But you can see that big ice. These areas here to the east of the Appalachians and in the southern plains across portions of the Mississippi River Valley are no stranger to these big ice storms. They happen about every 5 to 10 years out here. And these are some of the scenes. You can see my roommate's greenhouse in the backyard. Power lines down. We're going to be out of power for a long time. That's where the power was ripped out. Power lines on the ground there. You also want to assume those are active when they fall. But I could hear the power line ripped out of the roof of the house when the trees fell on the power lines. You could just hear the noise as it got ripped out of the house, and we lost power. No power for 2 weeks. Even the greenhouse was destroyed. You can see branches down in the greenhouse out there. But this was our backyard, just an absolute mess. And these are the scenes that you are going to see out there with this crippling ice and snowstorm. There's me, 27 years old.
What inch of ice accumulation
Actually,
last night, and it's still
then.
happening. We're without power. There's power lines down everywhere, and we're expecting the heavy rain to continue.
Holy shit, that tree right there just fell.
Yeah, right over there. Shattered.
There's Rick Thomas.
How long do you think it's going to be like this?
Also a meteorology student
no,
at the time.
we don't have power. Don't have our,
Yeah.
But that was a big ice storm back then. Here is the probability of snowfall exceeding warning criteria. Here is the ice from the Weather Prediction Center. Those areas in purple greater than 80%. And my mom's own backyard here has a greater than 80% of warning criteria freezing rain, northeastern Georgia. And that's just realizing the stubbornness of that surface air from making it out of this region. So I'm having to forecast for my mom as well, folks. And I want to take a look at some forecast soundings from the European model during peak freezing rain up here to the east of the Appalachians. There it is right here, folks. Peak freezing rain. We're going to pick one right over my mom's house. And that is a nasty sounding for freezing rain. It even has a more prominent warm nose here. That is a more prominent warm nose right here just above the ground than what we saw near the Memphis area. Looks like possibly even a sleet sounding there, but that warm nose very prominent just above the ground here, upstate South Carolina. More of a classic freezing rain sounding. Surface temperature 26 degrees, 25 over 24 actually at the surface, sub-freezing layer. And that's a bigger, more prominent warm nose. There's your freezing line going right through. And that looks like you could have more supercooled liquid here in upstate South Carolina. Could be even worse. So there's a very prominent warm nose near upstate South Carolina. Surface temperatures below freezing, as you can see. And that is going to lead to supercooled water droplets falling into this sub-freezing air. And this looks like a classic freezing rain type of a sounding here. Surface temperatures well below freezing too, allowing that to accrue on all the surfaces. And again, that's in upstate South Carolina, Greenville, up into Travelers Rest, western North Carolina, anywhere along and east of the spine of the Appalachians. That is an area that is notorious for these big crippling ice storms up here as the warm nose travels up and over that sub-freezing air that's banked up against the mountains. And here's the warm nose to the west of the Appalachians on the European model solution that could change things over to rain to the west of them with that persistent warm advection bringing those surface temperatures up above freezing with ice there into southern Kentucky and a little bit further north. But then you can definitely see the structure here as you get those sub-freezing temperatures just to the east of the Appalachians. So I'm particularly concerned for this area, trying to figure out my plan of attack to cover this. I may just end up driving all night from Minnesota back again here and then heading southwest. I got to go to the American Meteorological Society National meeting there in Houston and speaking events as well out in New Mexico on the 27th and then 30th in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and then the Chaser Summit February 5th through 7th. And then I'm back into Oklahoma City for February 12th at Rose State Theater. And February 13th up in Enid, Oklahoma. And then we go up to North Dakota there at the end of February. And all this is as we're rebuilding Dominator 3 and we're gearing up our science mission as well. Will Clay 25 has been working nonstop this entire winter to build sensors that we can launch into tornadoes like the 4th of July out there. So I'm going to be chasing this event. Look at this swath of precipitation out there in the European model. And this is going to be pretty bad here in my mom's place, upstate South Carolina. It looks like the precipitation is going to begin the evening of the 24th out here. The evening of the 24th it will begin. And it should kick through on the 25th. Got to be kidding me with that. There's your coastal low at the end with a kicker system. That will really make for a long duration snow event across portions of the Northeast, including New York City. Look at that high to the north of it. 996 low here to the south of Cape Cod. And you get easterly winds that just funnel squeeze play in between that high and the low pressure center. So we got the timing, we got the severity, we know the impacts. I showed you that event in 2007 that we woke up to a war zone. Happened in the middle of the night. Definitely assume when those power lines are down that they are still active, because that can be an immediate big problem type of a situation. And again, 2 maxima in ice. One, southeastern Great Plains Arclitex through the lower Mississippi River Valley, and also another one to the east of the Appalachians, so that those sub-freezing temperatures getting dammed up. Call that cold air damming to the east of the Appalachians. Those are 2 areas that just get hammered, and we are going to be live streaming this event. We're going to give it everything we have, and I might be back with AccuWeather as well for this event, providing some ground coverage. Multifaceted approach. Thank you everybody for tuning in to this live emergency update. Be sure to share this with all your friends if they live in that impacted zone. Never stop